The girl who slept on stone. She lay on cold stone beneath the alien sky, with no blanket, no roof, and no one who cared. Her skin was dry, her clothes were torn, and her eyes were dull like old glass. Each breath was slow, like her soul was forgetting how to live. People passed by without looking, some even kicked small dust at her, without meaning to. Children whispered that she was cursed, and old merchants just said she was already dead inside. She had no name now. No one asked for it. No one cared. But once she had been someone long ago. Before the war, before her family vanished, before her people were destroyed. She had been a daughter of a house with silver flags and songs in the air. Now she had only broken stones for company and silent nights that stretched too long. One morning, as heat began to rise from the ground, a strange sound came. Boots. Not heavy like soldiers, not rushed like thieves. Calm, steady steps. She didn't open her eyes. Why would she? She was used to footsteps that ignored her, but the steps stopped. Close. He stood there, a human tall, but not proud. Dust on his shoulders, old scars on his arms, his jacket patched with care. He didn't move, didn't speak. He only watched her for a long time, like he had seen something he couldn't explain. She opened one eye, just a little, enough to see the shadow standing over her. "Are you here to laugh too?" she said in a voice that was dry like wind over bone. He shook his head. No smile, no pity, just silence. Then slowly, he knelt beside her and brushed a small rock away from her arm. She didn't move, didn't stop him. Why would she? Pain meant nothing now. He placed a canister near her hand. Water, real. Clean water. Not from a ditch or a rusted tap, but fresh with cold beads forming on the outside. She stared at it. Her fingers didn't reach. He opened it, poured a little in a cup, and lifted it gently to her lips. She drank only a sip, but it burned down her throat like fire and life. She coughed once and then whispered. Why, he didn't answer. He just stood and began walking away. But the next day, he returned. He brought bread, rough and dry, but it filled the hole in her belly. Then he brought a blanket, then a piece of wood, then more rocks. He began stacking them beside her. Little by little, people began to notice in the market. A seller said, "That human fool is wasting time on her." In the tea stall, someone laughed. "Let him build her a palace of stone, it won't bring her soul back." But the human didn't stop. Each day he returned. Each time he placed one more stone, one more piece. Sometimes he sat beside her without saying anything, just being there. And slowly she began to sit, then lean on the stones, then speak a little more. She asked his name. He said Marcus. Just Marcus, a builder from Earth. She didn't give her name. Not yet. One night, as wind howled and stars burned cold, she opened her eyes and watched him sleep beside the half wall he had built. His back leaned against the stones, his breath steady, and for the first time in years, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, someone had not forgotten her. That morning she moved on her own. Stood for a second, shaky, tired, but standing. He saw her and smiled, a small smile. No words, and for the first time, she felt something, a tiny spark, not love, not yet, but warmth, hope like a fire under frozen stone. The cold was still there. The pain hadn't left, but she wasn't alone anymore, and that changed everything. The human who did not walk away. The next morning, the sun rose slowly, like it was unsure if this place deserved light. She sat with the old blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her back leaning against the wall of stone Marcus had built with his own hands. Her bones still ached, her skin still hurt, but her eyes followed him as he worked. He didn't talk much, only nodded when she looked at him. His hands were always moving, lifting heavy blocks, smoothing edges, cutting wood with tools that buzzed softly. She had never seen anyone build like this. Not for someone like her. He had no reason to stay. No family here. No friends. No orders from any government or soldier. He was just a builder from a broken world looking for a quiet place to breathe. But when he saw her lying there, on cold stones, he said something inside him cracked. Something old. Something buried. So he stayed. People talked. They always talked. The baker called him mad. The healer warned him she might carry disease. Some shouted that aliens like her had caused the war years ago. But Marcus never answered them. He just kept building every day more walls. Every night, more warmth. One morning, a guard stopped him. Alien soldier. Eyes sharp like knives. "You don't belong here, human." The guard said. "This area is for us." Marcus didn't look up from the plank he was hammering. "I'm not here to take anything." "Then why are you helping her?" Marcus paused. "Because no one else is." The guard scoffed and left, but his eyes promised trouble. Later that day, the girl asked him again, "Why me?" He didn't look at her. Instead, he pointed at a small crack in the stone. "You see this?" She nodded slowly. "Stone looks strong, but even the hardest rock breaks when left alone in cold. You were left alone too long. That's not your fault." She turned away. Tears didn't come. She had cried too much over the years, but something in her chest moved. Not pain, not fear, something softer, something unfamiliar. She didn't know how to thank him, so she started helping quietly. Carefully, she would pass him a nail or hold a board in place. She even tried sweeping the dust near her corner. At first he said nothing. Then one day, he said, "You're a fast learner." And she smiled. Just a little. When rain came, it fell hard and loud. Water ran through broken streets and turned dust into thick mud. Most people hid inside their homes, but Marcus stayed, covered her with a tarp, stood beside her as water splashed around his boots. She pulled the blanket closer and whispered, "You'll get sick," he replied. "So will you if I don't." And that was the end of it. After the rain, the ground was soft, but the house took shape. 2 walls now, a roof frame, even a place for a fire inside. It was small, simple. But to her, it looked like a castle at night. She sometimes watched him while he worked by firelight. His hands were rough, his clothes torn, but he never looked tired. He built like every nail was a promise, like every wall was hope. Not just for her, but maybe for himself. 2. One night, she asked him, "What was Earth like?" He looked up at the stars, quiet for a moment, then said, "Too many people, not enough kindness. I lost someone I loved there. Now I just try to build anywhere, for anyone who needs it." Then he added softly, "And you needed it," looked at the half-done home and felt her throat tighten. She had forgotten what it felt like to be needed, to be more than a burden. In the morning she found him asleep, sitting against a wall tool still in his hand. She placed the blanket around his shoulders before he woke. She didn't say a word, he didn't either. But when their eyes met, something passed between them, something warm. He didn't walk away, not when she was silent, not when she was broken, not when people mocked him. And now, she didn't want him to, not anymore. Whispers in the market. The small market near the ruins had never been a place of kindness. People came to trade scrap for food or argue over dry fabric and faded tech. No one offered smiles, No one helped strangers, and yet they all started watching, the human and the broken girl from a distance. Vendors began whispering as Marcus passed carrying wood on his shoulder. Children pointed at the wall of stone growing taller each day. Some aliens spat when they walked near. Some stayed silent but stared, with tight jaws and judging eyes. He should have left her to die. One muttered, "He's making her believe she matters." Another said still Marcus worked stone by stone. Cut by cut Lyra now sat inside the 3 walls of her almost home. There was no door, yet, but it was safe, warmer, real. She helped him gather things. She swept dust from corners. She even laughed once. It surprised both of them. A soft sound that broke the silence like music in ruins. When they walked to the market together, the place, quieted, vendors froze. Buyers stepped back. The butcher didn't speak when Marcus pointed at dried meat. The seller of boots ignored Lyra's voice. Even the water vendor refused to refill their canister. Marcus didn't get angry. He paid double and took what little he could. As they walked back, Lyra stared at the sky and asked, "Why do they hate me so much?" "Because they need someone to blame." Marcus replied, "But I did nothing. You existed." Sometimes that's enough for small hearts to turn cold. The next morning, a young alien girl appeared outside the wall. She didn't speak. She just placed a basket of berries near the stone and ran. Lyra watched her go, then looked at Marcus. "You think that was for you or for me?" He smiled. "Let's say it was, for both." More days passed, more stones placed, and now the whispers grew louder. Some said the girl had cursed him. Others believed the human had found a new kind of weapon in her. A soft weapon, dangerous, sweet. Still others said it was love. Old love from another life. Forgotten but now reborn at night. While the fire flickered inside the half-finished home, Marcus told her stories. He spoke of Earth, of cities that touched the clouds, of lakes that shined like silver, of music played by wind and wires. She listened, eyes wide like a child discovering the stars for the first time. No one ever told her stories before. Only commands, only warnings, only silence. One day a group of local boys threw rocks toward the house. Not to hit, just to scare. Marcus stood up, not with fists, but with calm. He picked up the stones, stacked them on the wall, and turned back to his work. No shouting, no threat, just strength without noise. Lyra watched him. A part of her wanted to cry. Another part wanted to run out and shout at the boys. But the largest part, the quietest part, simply wanted to keep helping him build. Because for the first time in her life, she was building something too. That evening, a man from the village council came, old alien with white marks on his skin and gold bands on his neck. He stood at the edge of the wall and said, "You can't stay here." Marcus looked up from his tools. "Why not? She's been judged by who? By all. Then all are wrong." The councilman frowned. "You're making them." Question. Good. They should. Then he turned to Lyra. "You think this human will protect you?" She stepped forward, her voice steady. "I don't think I know." "Then you're more foolish than I thought." "Maybe, but I'm warm now." He left without another word. That night, Marcus placed the first stone of the 4th wall. Soon the house would close, and when it did, so would the past inside. The market. The whispers changed again, some softer, some sharper, but no one could deny it anymore. She was no longer the girl who slept on stone. She was the girl standing beside a man, building living healing, and that was more dangerous than any weapon ever made. Whoosh had mine to bury mine. The rain came without warning that night, big drops crashing on stone and dirt like the sky had broken open. The wind screamed through the unfinished house, lifting dust and ash into the air. Marcus rushed to cover the open side with cloth and wooden planks. Lyra sat in the corner hugging her knees. She didn't say a word, but her breath had grown fast and sharp, not from the cold, from something else, something deeper. Marcus looked at her. Her body was shaking. Her hands gripped her arms like she was holding herself together. He moved closer, kneeled beside her. Lyra. Her eyes were wide and distant. She wasn't seeing the walls. She wasn't seeing him. She was seeing the past, the fire, the screams, her father shouting for help, her mother thrown to the floor, chains, smoke, betrayal, blood on crystal tiles. The soldiers had not spared anyone, not the elders, not the servants, not her brother. And when she cried for mercy, her own people turned their backs. They said she was not worth saving. They said her family had brought shame. The storm outside felt like the storm inside. Her Lyra. Marcus said again. She blinked, looked at him, then broke. I saw them burn. Her voice cracked like dry wood. I saw them all fall one by one, and no one came. He placed a hand on her arm. They tied me to a wall and left. They said I was a burden, said I was better forgotten. So I laid on cold stone because I believed them. She began to cry. Silent tears, no. Loud sobs, only a river that had waited too long to flow. Marcus didn't speak. He just sat there, still listening. His silence was not empty. It was full of care, full of understanding. Lyra wiped her face with shaking fingers. I never told anyone. I thought if I kept it locked away it would die. But it didn't. It grew like a shadow in my chest. Marcus reached behind and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. He opened it. Inside was a flat piece of metal shaped like a star. He placed it in her hand. What's this? A medal from Earth. For people who survive the impossible. I carried it with me but never wanted to wear it. Now, I think, maybe it was meant for you. She held it tightly, as if the shape alone could hold her together. For a long time they sat like that. The storm raging outside, the fire crackling inside, and her truth lying between them, like a broken sword, finally placed down. After a while she looked at him. You should have left me. You could have walked away. He shook his head. You were already strong. You just needed someone to remind you. But I'm broken. He smiled. So am I. Let's rebuild together. The wind slowed. The rain softened. And in the quiet after the storm, she leaned her head against his shoulder. Not because she was weak, but because for the first time in years, she felt safe enough to rest. In the morning the sun rose, bright and gold. The kind of sun that makes stone shine like treasure. Lyra stepped outside, her feet bare, her face lifted toward the light. The past had not disappeared, but it no longer owned her. She walked to the pile of stones and picked one up. Not heavy, not smooth, but solid. She placed it on the wall. One more piece of her new life. One more step forward. Marcus watched her from the doorway. She turned, met his eyes and smiled. Not small, not broken, but full. Like someone who had remembered who she was. And the world that once forgot her would now have to remember too. Enemies in the dark. The sun fell behind the hills and shadows crept over the land. The market closed early that day. The wind felt strange, too still, too silent, like something was holding its breath. Lyra sat inside the almost finished house, polishing, The star-shaped metal Marcus had given her. She liked the weight of it. It made her feel real, made her feel strong, but even that feeling faded as the light dimmed. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. Marcus was outside gathering tools when he heard footsteps. Not one. Many slow heavy, like boots made for war. Not walking. He turned around and saw them. 3 aliens tall, wearing black robes and golden rings. Symbols of the old royal clans. They were her people. Or used to be. The one in front had eyes like cold fire. His voice cut through the air. You built her a home. Marcus stood firm. I did. Then you are a fool. She carries the shame of our blood. She should have turned to dust years ago. Marcus didn't flinch. She deserves to live, like anyone. She was cast out by the elders. Left for a reason. You're trying to rewrite fate with stone walls and soft hearts. Inside the house. Lyra stood frozen. She knew that voice. Kaelin. Her cousin. The one who watched while they dragged her through fire. The one who turned his back as she screamed for help. Marcus raised his voice. She's not your concern anymore. She lives here now with me. Kaelin stepped forward. His guards reached for weapons. You dare speak to a blooded heir like that? She has poisoned you. Made you soft. Humans and their weak hearts. Lyra stepped out. Then her hands trembling. But her eyes burning. I poisoned nothing. You left me to die. You let your guards chain me. You threw me away like trash. And now you're here. Why afraid? Someone gave me a life. Kaelin stared at her. Disgust written on his face. You're a stain on our name. A broken relic of a lost age. You do not deserve love. You do not deserve peace. Marcus stood in front of her. If you take one more step toward her, I will stop you. You think a human can fight us? I don't think I know. Kaelin gave the signal. The guards moved. Fast. But not faster than Marcus. He grabbed a hammer from the ground, blocked the first swing, punched the second attacker so hard, the alien flew back into the wall. Lyra screamed, not from fear, but from rage. She picked up a stone and threw it. It hit one guard in the head. He stumbled back bleeding. Kaelin shouted, Enough. He raised a weapon, glowing red, pointed at Marcus. Lyra jumped in front. No, Kaelin hesitated. His hand shook. He didn't expect her to stand tall. Didn't expect her to protect someone. Didn't expect her to be anything but broken. Put it down. Marcus said. Kaelin lowered the weapon slowly. Not from fear, but confusion. He looked at Lyra. You would defend a human. After all, we were. She nodded. Because he did what you never did. He stayed. He built. He cared. And I would rather die beside him than ever follow you again. Kaelin turned away. Face tight. This world is changing. You will. I regret this. Then he and his guards disappeared into the dark. Marcus turned to her. Are you hurt? She shook her head. Not anymore. The fire crackled inside the home. They sat beside it in silence. Lyra looked at Marcus. You didn't run, neither did you. He smiled. You're stronger than you think. And you're crazier than I expected. She leaned her head against his shoulder. The house was still not finished. But for the first time it felt whole. Because walls alone don't make a home. Hearts do, and tonight, theirs beat as one. The stone house is finished. The morning after the fight was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels heavy, but not in a bad way. Like the land itself was watching them and waiting. Lyra opened her eyes to golden, sunlight slipping through the cracks in the roof. She blinked slowly. Her muscles ached. Her hands were sore. But she was not tired. She was calm. She sat up and looked around the small house. 3 solid stone walls. A 4th. Almost done the frame for. A door. A fire pit in the center. A small space, but it felt larger than the palace she was born in. Marcus was already outside. His shirt was off his back, damp with sweat as he lifted one more block into place. Lyra walked to the edge of the wall. Her fingers brushed against the rough stone. Warm from the sun. Strong, just like him. Need help. Her voice was soft. He didn't turn, just smiled. Always. Together they worked. He lifted. She supported. He nailed. She swept. Hours passed. Birds flew overhead. A breeze carried the scent of dust and earth. By midday, the 4th wall was complete. Marcus stood back and looked at it. Not perfect, not clean, but proud. He nodded slowly. Lyra stood beside him and whispered, "It's beautiful." He laughed. "It's just stone." She shook her head. "No, it's everything." That afternoon, they carved symbols into the outer wall. Not words, shapes her hand. His hand. A sun. A star. A stone. Each mark told a story. Not of war or loss, but of rebuilding. As the sky turned orange, the villagers came. Not all of them, just a few. The girl who once left berries, an old vendor who gave them cloth, a child holding flowers. They didn't speak. They simply placed gifts by the house and left. Lyra stood frozen at the door. They came. Marcus nodded. They see not just me, but you, us. She picked up the flowers and placed them in a broken bottle, set them by the window. A soft smile on her lips. That night, the fire burned bright. They sat close, not speaking much, just sharing space. Sharing peace. Marcus pulled something from his pack. A small metal ring. Simple, no gems, just smooth and clean. He held it in his palm. "I made this from the scraps of the first beam we laid. I wasn't sure what to do with it. Now I know." Lyra stared at it. Her heart beat slow. Heavy. "This isn't a question," Marcus said. "This isn't a demand. It's a truth. You are the strongest person I've ever known. And if you ever feel like sharing your path, I would walk it beside you." She took the ring, held it tight, then slipped it on her finger. "You already walk beside me," she said. "But now I want the world to see it too." He leaned closer. Their foreheads touched. No kiss. No need. The warmth was enough. The house stood behind them, full of fire, full of story, full of soul. The stone was no longer cold. It was home. And the girl who once slept forgotten on broken rock now stood inside walls she helped build, with a man who never asked for her past, only offered her a future. From stone to love. The sun rose slow and golden, touching every stone of the little house. Birds flew low over the dusty hills, singing soft, strange songs. Lyra stood at the doorway, barefoot, eyes closed, feeling the morning wind on her skin. She was no longer afraid of the wind. She was no longer hiding from the sky inside. Marcus was preparing tea using a dented old pot and dry herbs from the local market. He hummed a soft earth song, one he barely remembered, but the sound made the house feel warmer. Lyra stepped in and took the pot from his hands. "Sit." He raised an eyebrow. She pointed to the chair he carved last week. He sat. She poured the tea. They drank in silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because everything had already been said in quiet glances, shared work, and open hands. She placed her cup down and looked at him. You know they'll talk more now. Marcus nodded. Let them. She smiled. I hope they talk forever. Later that day, Lyra walked through the village, not hiding, her face not wrapped in rags, but standing tall in her handmade robe, gray and red with a belt tied from braided cloth. Children waved. Some even ran beside her giggling. The old water vendor offered her a sweet fruit. She bowed her head. Thank you. Back. At the house, Marcus worked on a new door, wood strong and smooth. He wanted something beautiful for the entrance, not to keep danger out, but to welcome peace. In that night, the village surprised them. People came. Not many, but enough to matter a few. Lanterns. A few baskets of food. One musician with a stringed instrument. They stood outside the house. Waiting, Marcus opened the door. Lyra beside him. One of the women stepped forward. We heard. That you finished it. That she stands again. That you built something more than walls. She placed a clay bowl on the step. Inside, it was salt. A gift of protection. Then came another. An old alien who once told Lyra to stay off his path. He handed her a flower. For the center of the house, he said, so that beauty is always welcome here. Lyra didn't know what to say, so she just opened the door wide and let them in. The fire burned bright that night. Laughter filled the room. Food was passed hand to hand. No fancy plates, no rich words, just warmth, just truth. The musician played slow notes, rising like smoke. Children danced. Even Marcus smiled more than usual at one point. Lyra stepped out to breathe, to watch the stars, to remember who she had been and who she had become. Marcus followed her. She looked up at him. Do you remember the first stone you placed? He nodded. I thought you were going to throw it at me. She laughed softly. I thought about it. They stood in silence a moment. Then she turned to him. I want you to know something. He listened. When you first gave me water, I didn't believe it was real. When you built the first wall, I didn't think it would last. When you stayed during the rain, I thought you were a little mad. But now I know. You weren't just building a house. You were building me. Marcus looked down, his voice soft. And you rebuilt me too. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a stone. Not special, just small. Smooth. She pressed it into his palm. What's this? The last stone. For the roof. Our roof. He closed his hand around it, then placed it in the center of the rooftop beam the next morning, sealed it in place with care. And when the final nail was set, the house sighed, like it was breathing for the first time. From that day on, people no longer called her the girl who slept on stone. They called her the Stone Heart, not because she was cold, but because she was unbreakable. And beside her, the builder from Earth, the man who chose to stay, the man who taught the village what love looked like when spoken with hands, not words. They were not rich, they were not royal, but their home became a place of peace, a place where broken ones came and found warmth, and the wind that once froze her bones now danced through her windows, singing of love carved into stone.